Good afternoon, very well. Welcome to the West Yorkshire Football Show and our final World Cup daily. These seem to have been a daily, well, they have been a daily staple for us here on the channel. But now that the World Cup has officially come to an end, this will be our last one. I'm delighted to say I'm joined for it by Jayson, Boocker, and Dave Foy to kind of have a little bit of a look back at the tournament overall. Certainly a look back at last night's final and the third place final from the night before. And just to kind of go through a little bit about what we've liked, what we've not liked, and how we kind of have seen this World Cup overall. How are we, gents? Are we well for a start?
Doing well, mate. All good.
Yeah, I'm really good, especially after that Argentina press conference, which I'm sure we'll get round to. That really cheered me up.
Well, I'm not going to lie. I think I know what you're referring to, but I haven't fully properly seen it. So, yes, we will come to that. In fact, we may as well start at the end, I suppose, and that is last night's final. Jay, a strange game, to be honest, simply because Argentina didn't really want to engage. It wasn't the final that we expected from these two sides.
No, I mean, you couldn't have had any more of a contrast of games between Saturday and Sunday, could you?
No.
It was pretty crazy. Look, Argentina had a game plan and they'd played a fair bit of the tournament in a similar fashion. I didn't think that the performance as such was that different to the one against England. Up until us going in front, for example, I know Argentina were a little bit more of a threat, but England are nowhere near as good as Spain. So I think we saw a similar game played out. It's just Argentina couldn't get any sort of momentum going forward because of the dominance of Spain. But for that to be what they served up in a World Cup final is bordering on embarrassing. They didn't have a shot, not just a shot on target. They didn't have a shot on goal until the 117th minute.
Yeah,
that is unacceptable in a World Cup final. Yeah, it's totally unacceptable, really. I mean, Messi he weren't even able to get in the game, were he? There was no possibility for him to even affect what was happening. Spain were great, but I don't feel like they had to be any better than what they were, if that makes sense. Like, Argentina made it so not easy for them, but because they competed, obviously, but they were so negative to the point that Spain didn't really have to worry about what were coming back at them.
Yeah, it was one where there was a lot of chances that Spain had. Martinez, to be fair to him, made some really good saves in the 90 minutes before it got to extra time. But yeah, just so bizarre, Dave, to see an Argentine side with the talent that they have, the attacking talent that they have, go for such a sit back, defend, and obviously struggle to counter. Just to see that was bizarre.
Yeah, and I mean the coach obviously tried to stick with a few players that changed it against England. But yeah, I think you guys have covered most of what I'd have said anyway. Yeah, very, very underwhelming. And Messi just couldn't get any influence in the game. But I don't think he really got that much in the England game until we let him. You know what I mean? Yeah. We were sandwiching in between two players, kicking him up in air, playing Argentina at their own game, and then this will have been dissected in other shows. It was only once we started sitting back that Messi's playing short corners and swinging a ball in and stuff. Up to that point, it was, I don't want to say anonymous, but it wasn't as lethal as what the best player, player in the world could be. But yeah, didn't have a sniff in this game. Spain were just 100%.
Was it the worst World Cup final that you two can remember seeing? Because for me, the one that always gets kind of drawn out as being a bad final was the Netherlands-Spain game in 2010. But at least that had more in the game entertainment-wise. The Netherlands, as aggressive as they were, did attack a bit, did get some shots in. Was that yesterday just the one of the dullest finals we've seen?
It was. Yeah, I'd say so. I mean, it was similar. Was the Netherlands game? I mean, we all remember the De Jong tackle in that game, and Netherlands
calling it a tackle. Yeah,
kung fu kick to the chest.
But they went about it in a similar way to what Argentina did last night. I mean, let's be fair, right? 10 men or 11 men. This is the reality. if Spain had not scored at the beginning of the second half of extra time, there's a high likelihood that Argentina would have got to the end of 120 minutes without having a single shot.
Yeah, 100%.
That is very much the likelihood of what would have happened. So you can only describe a game that exists in as being totally woeful. But I don't think it was Spain's fault. I think Spain went about it in the way that they do. They kept possession. They were creating the odd moment here or there. But when you're against 11 players behind the ball, it's extremely difficult to break it down. We've had this discussion with England, haven't we? And we've seen it with teams coming to spot. You know, the Ghana being a great example of that for England in this World Cup. It's extremely difficult when somebody a team has no intention of scoring goals.
Yeah.
Unless you're Argentina against England.
Yeah.
In which case it's free reign. You can do it.
Yeah. And when the man at the back, the man behind the 10 outfield players as well, also happens to be Emi Martinez, who, to be fair, is without a doubt probably the best, or one of the best goalkeepers in the world. Jed, he's been in touch this evening, boys. The passing masterclass, 803 passes, 9% accuracy, and of course, 20 shots to 3. Thanks for joining us, mate, whatever time it is, wherever in the world you are, for tuning in this time. I mean, I guess, look, Spain, you didn't have to be a rocket scientist before the World Cup started to make Spain certainly amongst the top 2 or 3 favourites for the competition. And it kind of panned out that way, I guess, overall.
Go on, Dave, I'll let you go first.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, it was covered at kickoff, but you've got your Copa America champions versus your European champions.
Yeah.
So the 2 strongest continents in world football have met. It's going to happen this way. Like, as you say, favourites are going to get to the final because they are favourites. You know what I mean? The final 4 were 4 of the strongest nations in the world, or 3 of the strongest nations in the world and England.
Well, they were the top 4 ranked sides by FIFA, to be fair. They were the top 4.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, I think everybody's eyes were on France up until them getting knocked out, because they just seemed to be making everything almost elemental, like they didn't have to get out of first gear. One thing Spain have done is kept 7 out of 8 clean sheets to win this World Cup. So, you know, you've just got to tip your hat to that kind of consistency. As you say, they were one of the favourites. Argentina might have made it a little bit easier by not really attacking them, but, you know, that will be forgotten as time progresses. We will just remember Spain have won their 2nd World Cup.
Yeah, absolutely. And you look at that start as well, Jay. They obviously started with that, and they didn't win that first game. Obviously, that goal was draw against Cape Verde. What I thought was nice as well was when we saw the celebratory shots of the Spain goal, and this was mentioned on the TV, I think, after the game as well, that it panned to that kind of class of 2010, those Spain players that had been there and done it, and obviously were European champions in 8 and 12, and that World Cup sandwiched in between. What chance, given that Spain are 2 steps of the way there, them doing it again and completing a Euros double sandwich with this World Cup in the middle?
They definitely could. I mean, they've got an unbelievable team. They've got unbelievable youth on their side as well. I mean, Lamine Yamal, arguably, you know, one of the best players in the world at 19-year-old. The kid's a joke, the only thing that'll stop him is injuries, really, in terms of growing and going on to dominate at the top level like a Messi has done for years and years and years to come. So the kid's unbelievable to watch. They've got a beautiful balance about him. I mean, me and my lad were watching game last night, and we were commenting on the fact that it's crazy that Pedri doesn't start. He's rocking off at bench after 80 minutes, and the kid's one of the best centre midfielders in the world. So yeah, they have all the capabilities of doing that. You mentioned Cape Verde. We mentioned them last night as well, because it's funny. The Argentina performance last night was very reminiscent of that Cape Verde performance on the opening day of the opening games of the tournament. Yeah. And Cape Verde arguably were better than what Argentina showed last night. And I know the context different, World Cup final over a group game. I understand that, but it was very reminiscent. And it goes to show what Cape Verde have done in the tournament, but also how Argentina have finished it in this game, because there shouldn't be a comparison between the 2 performances, really. But one thing I will say, I do think ultimately the two best teams played each other in the semi-final in Spain and France. The winner really of the tournament should have probably come from that game. I know what happened on Saturday happened, and we can go over and talk about that and all the rest of it. But I think the best team was in that game, and Spain showed themselves to be worthy winners of the tournament that day alone, with the way that they kind of swept aside France. And, from an England-Argentina point of view, I think Dave's probably right. We're probably third and fourth best teams in the world, however you kind of want to situate that right now. I think that's probably the case, because I think there's a few teams that ordinarily you would think of as being strong that are in a bit of a funk right now. Belgium, Germany, Portugal, and the Netherlands. All four. Brazil, all five of them. You would always think they're going to be there or thereabouts, where really all five of them weren't. They were actually miles away from really being potential winners of this tournament. As much as I've loved it, and I've loved every second of watching this World Cup, it feels like there's a big gap between Spain and everyone else, or Spain and France and everyone else. To me, it does anyway. Whereas usually it doesn't kind of work out like that. You do have maybe 4, 5, or even 6 genuine top nations that have got a real chance of winning the World Cup. When I look back over it, it doesn't feel like that were ever really the case. If I'm honest.
I think when that's something we've said to you, I think you and I have said that over the course of the shows we've done, and I've certainly said that with the other lads, with Gaz and Brownie and Lou when they've been on, that it has felt that it's sort of been tiered weirdly, or that the way international football is now is just tiered by default almost, that Spain and France are your top two, and as I say, other nations that you expect to do well just are going through either different times or transition periods, to say the least. Let's just touch briefly, I guess, on the game on Saturday, just to kind of round off England's tournament, I guess.
Just before you do, though, Chris, you were on about tiering. Now, I know it's happened for ages, but I think the seeding of tournaments dilutes it as well. Imagine just being drawn out of a pot and having proper groups of death like you used to get in European competitions and stuff, where you'd have, like, for argument's sake, one group would have Brazil, Spain, and Holland in it. We just don't get it anymore because it's seeded. So the best teams get through, and then we even made third best place get through, and Scotland still didn't make it because they're Scotland. But I think the seeding of it also dilutes it down. You're always just going to get the best teams going through. Obviously, it's opened it up a bit more to teams like Cape Verde, who, again, I'm sure we'll get onto, and Congo and who have you. But essentially, the group stages are, unless you implode spectacularly, the best nations just qualify by default anyway.
Yeah, it's very true. Very true. I mean, there were a few nations that were massively underwhelming in the groups that still managed to get through anyway. So you're spot on. I mean,
I can't think of any major shocks either. I can't think of a what you class as a reputable nation that, for example, finished bottom of a group. I can't think of. I can't think of one off the top of my head. I mean, there was one that didn't go through that I was thinking I expected them to, but I can't remember who it was now. But they were the groups at the start, Sweden, just to try and jog you memory.
Sweden even got through. South Africa being able to qualify on the last game. We're mental considering how bad they were. There's pros and cons to this. I think I remember thinking it about Czechia. Czechia didn't go through, did they? They got knocked out. I think I remember that. And Turkey were probably the biggest, because I think Turkey probably could have won that group, and they ended up finishing.
How did Haiti finish third, by the way, over Scotland? Or is that
no, Scotland did finish above them because they beat Haiti.
But Scotland did finish one of the best players.
They finished third, but didn't get through. Let me just quickly rejig things. Then let's just kind of finish finish with Saturday, just to kind of round off the actual matches that we saw. And as you said beforehand, Jay, absolute stark contrast to the game that we saw the final turned out to be. What a game! Take the game as it was. What a game!
It will reminisce of Soccer Aid. That's
Write that down, Lou. Get that written down.
Yeah, get that written down. That's what it was like. It were fun. It was certainly fun to watch, and but it were mental. The way that France came out. I mean, they were so poor in that first half. England were good, but France were so poor. They'd already gone home. They checked out. Yeah. And then they came out in second half and turned it up from first gear to second and a half, third gear a bit, and all of a sudden just started knocking goals past us for fun. And Mbappe actually wanted to play a little bit in that second half and just started ripping us apart. I mean, defensively was so bad. Jude Bellingham comes on and scores one of the most hilarious goals and class goals I've ever seen in my life. Like it was just constant. It was just going and going and going. And before, I thought we were gonna. You remember like when you were at junior football and you'd run it to the line and have to stop it on the line. That's what it was like. It was like, will you just shoot? Like, he just kept on going. But yeah, mate, what can I say about it? It was fun. I think it answers. It asks a lot more questions than it answers, because the freedom that was allowed within that performance was what we were crying out for at times within some of these games. And I don't know. But then how much does it even matter because of the pressure that was attached to the game, or the lack of pressure that was attached to the game?
I think that makes a big difference. I think that lack of pressure and the fact that neither side necessarily wanted to be there. It's a game that had to be played to kind of finish the tournament off, and ultimately, Dave, say what you want about the game itself and how much it means or doesn't mean, but ultimately, it is England's best finish to a World Cup since 1966.
Yeah, it is, and I mean, again, it's England are collecting personal accolades without actually collecting the trophy. Bellingham finishes with 7 goals. That's the highest an England player's ever finished. Bukayo Saka scored a World Cup hat-trick. You cannot take that away from him. That's a personal accolade that he'll be able to hold on to for the rest of his life. We've scored 6 against France. It's a glass half full or a glass half empty result. And if you just had France 4, what did England score? We'd have all gone probably 0, probably 1. Or if you'd have gone, England got 6 against France, you'd be going, what? What? How? I mean, I know that third versus fourth is a pretty pointless game, but yeah, in terms of personal accolades, we continue to gather them. Harry Kane's World Cup scorer, he'll probably become, well, he's already done it, England's all-time World Cup scorer. We collect accolades, but without collecting the actual thing, which is there. Hang on. Why won't my finger point to it? There. No, there. There. That trophy there. But no, yeah, I think, yeah. Do you know what? I didn't watch this game, and I watched the final, and I wish I'd have done it the other way around. But I put it in the group. Euro 2028 will come round. We'll win all 10 games. We'll probably concede 1 or 2 goals, and then we'll be back to drawing 0-0 with Slovenia in a group stage, and it'll be like, what's happened to England? It'd be like, well, we've been doing this for 60+ years.
Right. Who won player of the tournament, by the way?
Oh, it was a Spaniard. He got the golden.
I think it might have been.
Kabasi were mentioned, but
Kabasi got young player of the tournament because he looked so surprised to get it centre half, but he's had such a good tournament.
Brilliant
player of the tournament was Rodri. I'm sure it was Rodri.
Yeah. Rodri, yeah.
Fair.
Took me a minute to kind of think then. I'm just going to quickly switch to graphics. I'm just going to bring up the top goal scorers and quickly edit it. You keep talking, Jay.
The only reason I mentioned that, as disparaging as I can be about England as a whole in this tournament, and I will continue to be, because I think for most of it we were really, really poor, and yet we still got to a semi-final. I think Jude Bellingham was unreal, and for me, even though we didn't win the competition, I still think Jude Bellingham was the best player at the whole competition. The guy literally single-handedly carried us on his back, scoring 7 goals from midfield.
Certainly through the knockouts.
Yeah, for me, I think he's the standout player. Mbappe's had moments where he's been in and out of games and not shown up. Messi does what Messi does. And the player of the tournament will usually go to either one of the players that win the tournament or one of the top scorers.
Yeah.
But personally, I think if you look at it a little bit deeper as to who the best performing player was through the whole tournament, I genuinely think Jude Bellingham deserved it, personally.
I mean, I
Yeah.
said it earlier on in the tournament, all the goal scorers to a fashion have turned up. Dembele's on that list, Haaland's on that list, Messi, Mbappe, Vinicius Junior's managed to sneak onto it. The lad from Spain whose name I can't say, as well. You know, there's been some tournaments in the past, and again, it's England heavy where like Wayne Rooney's not scored, but he's come into it as like one of Europe's best strikers in inverted commas. There always tends to be a striker, I think, in major tournaments that doesn't turn up, whereas all the big hitters have turned up in this tournament and are on that list.
This time it was Cristiano Ronaldo, Dave, wasn't it?
Well, yeah, I know, but he's 40 odd, and you know what? He should just retire. But
yeah, he should.
More so because Portugal are still building themselves around him, and he's what 40? Is he 42?
41,
yeah,
41, 42, and they're still building their entire. But the quality that Portugal have got, love him or hate him, they've got Bruno Fernandes among others. The team's good enough to carry on without Ronaldo. They don't need to hang on to him forever. And they're going to wheel him out in a wheelchair, literally at like World Cup 2040. You know what I mean? Just let him go. I swear to God.
I agree with
you. Will he limp into Euro 2028? You know, it'd be what, 43, 44?
I can't see
how long are they going to build a team around him?
I can't see him playing another one, but one thing I will say with regards to Ronaldo is that the new manager of Portugal has been his manager out in Saudi
last season. Yeah,
maybe there will be a route for Cristiano.
I mean, the Argentina coach come out and he didn't say that the Argentina team was built around Messi, like Messi is the main man. He said it was tailored more to his strengths. Whereas I think Portugal are totally built around him. But then at the same time, Norway are built around Odegaard and Haaland. They just do what they need to do. They play to the strengths of the team. But I don't think Ronaldo is a strength to Portugal anymore.
I agree with you. Yeah, I agree with you completely.
There's a couple of different routes I could go down from this point. I'm gonna go with the couple of the comments that we've had actually from Jed. He says the Palace keeper won't forget his debut. Of course, it was Dean Henderson that played in that England-France game. Makes his debut in World Cup. Lets him fall, but ends up on the winning side. That is a debut that you're never a tournament debut you're never gonna forget. Charles has commented, he says, now the debate is where does Rodri stand versus the likes of Mascherano, Makelele, Kante, Vieira, Busquets, even Beckenbauer in terms of the greatest holding mids to exist? That is a good question. I mean, look, to see young player of the tournament go to Kabassi as a centre-half and player of the tournament go to a holding mid, clearly people were favouring the defensive side of the game when it came to handing out the award. What do you think, Jane? Where does Rodri rank?
I think he's as good as any of them names that you've mentioned. I really do. I've always been a massive fan of Rodri. He obviously had the ACL injury on the back of winning the Ballon d'Or. He kind of came back and didn't look like he was going to be the same player. Pep came out and said he will. He'll get back to what he was. And I saw an article on it the other day where it was kind of then backing that up that he's proven that he would. And I mean, he was sensational, wasn't he? He dictated everything, completely ran the game. His vision, his awareness, his foot in the tackle. I think he's very similar to Busquets. I think he's the easiest kind of comparison. You know, the body type and the way that he reads the game and the way that Busquets did. But then he can do more going forward than Busquets.
Because I know he was what he was, but I bloody hated Busquets.
Yeah,
I really like Rodri.
It was a bit of an S house, wasn't it? It was. You know, Makelele probably, I think, had that little bit more quality than Busquets and could drive it forward. Rodri has that. He don't quite have the legs of a Kante, but he just sees everything. I think he's class. Yeah, to kind of to sum up and going around the houses.
All top teams have the S houses.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it just happens that South Americans seem to have more than others.
Yeah.
But you've got to back up being S houses with genuine quality. Imagine trying to be an S house team and actually being terrible. You'd just get whooped. You'd be getting players sent off left, right, and centre and just losing. You have to have the talent coupled with that side, otherwise it doesn't work.
No, you're right. But yeah, I'd put him in with all them names, mate. And I think nostalgia and history does things to players. In 20, 30 years' time, we'll look back and talk about Rodri just like we do Makelele, Kante, Vieira, and the rest of them.
Yeah, I think you're probably fair there. Before we go on to do Jed's question on goalkeeper, I want to stick with the Spanish for a second. And the top of a BBC article that I saw this morning stating Lamine Yamal completes football at 19.
Yeah.
I mean, he's picked up a Euros and a World Cup, and he's 19. Does it get better for him, really, apart from just to keep adding to them to do both of those at that age?
It's not good enough. He needs a Champions League as well.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, go get it. Is it Barcelona? I mean, Barcelona.
They're building
Barcelona
this summer as well, about, so they look like next season could be a real force. I mean, that's basically all he's got left, isn't it? Champions, he won La Liga this season with Barca. He needs a Champions League, and as he then completed football and can retire at 22.
There's a chance that he could win the Ballon d'Or this year as well. With now winning the World Cup, there is a chance. I mean, it's mental. I mean, I were poking fun at our kid yesterday. As you guys know, obviously Oliver's 16, and he sat next to me watching World Cup yesterday. I'm like, I can barely even get my kid to get a shower regularly. And Lamine Yamal is like 2 years older than him, and he's doing all of this. You know what I mean? Not that I'm holding him to the standards of Lamine Yamal, but it is incredible when you think just how immature he should be, and he's able to do what he does. You know, we look at sports people in a certain way with a certain glaze, don't we? And you know, some of it's warranted, some of it's not. But still, to be able to perform at that level in front of that many people on a regular basis and do what he does, because it's not just natural talent that he rolls out on a Saturday, is it? It's all the hours and the determination to get there. And I just think he's incredible. What a kid, and what a career. I mean, he's just going to do it all, isn't he? And he's going to continue to do it all continuously until he decides he's had enough.
What do you reckon, Dave?
Do you know what? I got completely lost in what we were saying. We're still on about Yamal.
Yeah.
I mean, as you say, 19. But do I mention Jude Bellingham again? He was he had that same level of. Well, does he have a maturity? Because everyone still says he has this bit of an edge to him, and he's liable to kick out every now and again and that. But Bellingham's similar.
Yeah,
without any of the trophies.
He's past it now. He's 23.
Well, yeah, there's that. But then at the time, you know, he came into World Cup 2022 and we beat Iran 6-2. Did he score 2 and set a couple up? Like, I can remember him having a pretty decent time of it. But yeah, Yamal, we hold Jude Bellingham in such high regard, and rightly so. But Yamal's a level above that.
Yeah.
Well, Bellingham would be looked at differently if he wasn't English. I think.
Yeah,
I think that's part of it. Obviously, the position changes things a little bit as well. You know, the attacker to midfielder. But Bellingham's 23 years old and he's made 55 appearances for England already. In an English version, he's going to go on and just continue. We forget how how good he is as well. I mean, he's already played for Real Madrid. He's already won loads himself as well. The guy's an absolute freak in his own way. But it is a good comparison. It's a good conversation to have. I think Bellingham will win Ballon d'Ors as well. He'll go on to do it. But unfortunately for him, he's got the DNA. He's got the DNA, right? Like, he's got the English problem. So,
Charles, he says that completed football is a Champions League, a Ballon d'Or, and World Cup. Rodri is now in that category. Apparently, only 11 players in history.
Is Charles 87 Rodri's burner account? Is it actually you, Rodri? You should be enjoying lifting that World Cup, not talking on our show.
I mean, Yamal is only.
Yeah, he's ridiculous, isn't it? Yeah.
Give it time, and Yamal, I think, will certainly be in that category. Plus, everything wants to be Euros.
Rodri was part of that forgetful treble with Man City as well.
It was.
People forget that they actually won the treble the year they won the Champions League as well.
Yeah.
I mean, the accolades some of these players have. I mean, obviously, if we get on to Messi. Messi's completed football, 2-3 times?
Yeah.
Gone back and just done it again. His prestige started again and gone again. It was quite sad if we stay on Messi, just seeing him sort of sat on the floor contemplating. I think Emi Martinez come over, just sort of like give him a bit of like a high five, a quick handshake. I don't know if I read too much into it, but Emi Martinez didn't attempt to pick him up off the ground. He was quite happy just to leave Messi sat there. You could see Messi was in that sort of reflective mood, looking around. 99.9% obviously his last World Cup.
Yeah.
And he's just try to take it all in, and Messi's Messi, and we could do 100 shows on what he brought and does at football.
You would think there'd be a certain sense of possibly frustration or regret that, on the whole, they didn't give it more of a go. Obviously, from Messi's perspective, in terms of wanting to get that second World Cup.
He's a serial winner in there, and his standards are so high. And he's not stupid. He'll be well aware of what he's got around him in terms of quality. And they have got some quality, but they also have got a serious drop in quality in comparison to Spain. So he will know that. And he will also, I think, be looking around at, Enzo Fernandez, Paredes, a couple of the others that were sticking feet in and been thinking, I'm a bit embarrassed about this. I was talking about it. It's funny because he doesn't come across the South American, does he, Lionel Messi? And I think it's because he's been so in the spotlight for so long. He's been raised in Spain. His culture is probably a little bit different to some of the more, shall we say, rugged South Americans that Argentina kind of display. And he carries himself totally differently. There's no way that Lionel Messi was ever going to be involved in all that pushing and shoving yesterday. And what it wouldn't happen, would it, because of the way that he carries himself. So he will definitely have, I think, been reflecting on that performance and been thinking, we didn't deserve to win this. We got here, but we didn't deserve to win it.
Yeah, I think the only little bit of S-housery that he went in for yesterday was when whoever was clad by Enzo was down his on the deck. And
I reckon that Messi gets away with
tried to explain to him that kind of he'd hurt his mouth, and basically Messi thought he covered his mouth and went straight to the referee to be like, he's covered his mouth. But again, players, it's one of those, isn't it? It's one of those.
I think he's always in the ref's ear. I think that's where his little subtle dark arts come in. They reckon that he spoke to the ref for like 4 minutes at half time of the England game. Like, what?
But you know what, right? So our Oliver mentioned this yesterday, and I think that the media gets hold of this and this kind of narrative that Argentina got like favours from refs and stuff. This has been a thing as long as football's been a game that we play, right? The best players and the best managers will get in the ref's ear. Ferguson was famous for it for years. Manchester United were terrible for it, weren't they, during the late 90s and early 2000s? Like, you just deal with it. Like, it is part of the game. And if Messi is trying to get a little bit of an inch by sweet talking the referee or nagging constantly or whatever, he's not been the only one to ever do that.
No, probably. But
definitely,
just little rat boy features into that's all.
We got Wayne Rooney sent off 20 years ago. You know what I mean? Like,
we don't seem to do shit like that. Sorry, we don't seem to do stuff like that.
No, you're right. We don't. That was kind of my point when we were having this conversation last night. Was we should do more of it.
Yeah,
like he's part of sport, especially such an emotive sport in the moment as football is. Like if you're in toboggan, if toboggan's your thing, like you're going down, like you can't do it in toboggan, can you? You know what I mean? No. But look, I just make this point very quickly. Look at what happened in Abu Dhabi 2021, right? I hate that moment. It's one of for those that don't know, the Formula One, the final race.
I'm going to say you have to explain this.
And what happened. Well, long story short, the Red Bull team get in the ear of the race director and basically get a decision that was completely out of the confines of the rule books to happen to favour them. That is what happened. It happens in top level sport all the time.
Yeah, so look at the Trump and the Balogun red card in this one and things like that. Couple of quick more comments from Jed. Best keeper, boys. Is it Argentine keeper Emilio Martinez made 7 saves yesterday in the final? Despite Argentina's defensive approach, they didn't have him to thank. Where does Martinez rank currently, do you reckon, amongst the top keepers in world football? Because I think it seems to be, again, maybe a pool that isn't quite as top level as it used to be for the top keepers nowadays compared to what it might have been 5-10 years ago.
It does seem that way, doesn't it? I mean, I can remember. I mean, I don't know again if this is all starry-eyed nostalgia, but you go back to the 90s and you've had like Kahn and Schmeichel, and again, does David Seaman sneak into that conversation? You know, we had all these quality goalkeepers, Peruzzi, Italian goalie, Juventus goalkeeper. You know, we'd have had Neuer competing with other people who aren't coming into my head right now.
You'd have had Neuer and like Iker Casillas. You'd have had
Casillas, of course.
Christ, who would Italy's have been around that time?
Italy would be Buffon, wouldn't it?
Yeah, of course, Gigi Buffon. Are we at a time where top level goalkeeping maybe isn't as top as it used to be? When you look at Luis Martinez, probably is the best in the world at the moment.
Yeah,
but then who's his next nearest rival nowadays? Because obviously Courtois is 30 odd, and go on, Jay.
I've got quite a lot to say about this, but I'll try and keep it quite short. That I definitely think the world of goalkeepers has changed massively. My lad's a keeper, and the standard is so much lower than it used to be. The thought of as an 11th outfield player as much as they are a goalkeeper now, because of the way that football gets built up. And for me, the best keeper in the world right now, if I had to go and pick a goalkeeper to have, it'd be Donnarumma. I think Donnarumma's sensational. I think he still does all of that, and he's okay with his feet. I think he's in that kind of category. But I think cross collection, you know, all the things that you want a great keeper to do, he's some of his stops are a joke.
He's goalkeeper first, footballer second, almost.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. But Martinez is right up there. I mean, David Raya don't play for Spain, which
doesn't even play.
And he's arguably one of the best keepers in the world. That's a funny conversation to have. I think his height plays against him. I think some managers will tolerate it because of how good he is with the ball, and some won't. But he makes up for it in athleticism. But yeah, outside of that, I mean, Jordan Pickford's been our best keeper for years now, and he's a bang average Premier League goalkeeper. I think I like him, but he's erratic and he's got deficiencies to his game. The fact that he's been our best keeper for so long kind of shows where the standard of goalkeeping is. So,
one of England's best ever keepers, though.
James Trafford could go on to be wonderful. Good. Depends how much time he gets at City behind Donnarumma.
Well, I mean, Trafford's another one that's linked with Leeds as it happens, and that is gearing up a bit of steam, but it's going to be 40 million quid, and he needs to play, doesn't he? He needs to play James Trafford to stand a chance of displacing Pickford. Pickford could have another 2 or 3 tournaments. And I agree with Chris. That Pickford has been one of our best ever keepers. He has. But I still think that shows something about our level of goalkeeper. Jordan Pickford would never have played for Spain, never have played for Germany. He just wouldn't. And I would argue he'd probably have never played for Argentina either, in comparison to some of the keepers that they've had over the more recent tournaments. You know, it's funny because Brazil have obviously dominated world football during some of my lifetime, and they've had awful goalkeepers on the whole. You know, Dida was awful, really. He was a terrible goalkeeper, but he's a funny one in it with goalkeepers.
Yeah, just backing up, playing out from the back, a lot of keepers out, and that's the thing nowadays. They are expected so much more to do that playing out from the back than they were before, Dave.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I'm just thinking of, I mean, goalkeepers are still enormous. Again, for staying on Donnarumma, what is he, 6'5"? Yeah, but he's more like slender, whereas likes of Kahn and Schmeichel, they were just like big wardrobe people. Like they were as big as they were wide and big hands, but they didn't have to, all they did with the ball was kick it out off. Well, I mean, Schmeichel could throw it over halfway, but they didn't have to be good with the feet. The only thing they used the feet was to save stuff.
Yeah. You were there to goalkeep. You were there to stop the ball going in the net rather than play the ball with your feet, a 20-yard pass here, a 50-yard pass there, or whatever. It's certainly a different game. The other thing that Jez mentioned that you touched on before we started, Dave, or just right at the start of the show, none of the Argentine players fronted up for the post-match interview. Obviously, Lionel Scaloni did, but he ended up in tears and had to leave. I haven't seen it myself. I've seen little still images of the situation. I don't know if you might have seen a bit more of that, Dave. I'll let you lead with this one. Whilst I bring in Lewis Sale.
Yeah, I've watched it without sound, so I would imagine he's speaking in what do they speak in Argentina?
Spanish.
But whatever it is, I've watched it without sound, but as an Englishman, it's just very, very funny to watch an Argentinian man have to cry. So my initial thoughts are like, F him and F Argentina, basically. Like, I think it's great. I think it's that one of the highlights of the tournament post England knockout for me. I'd put it above us beating France 6-4. I think it's hilarious.
I think
it shows how emotionally invested and fiery and temperamental the whole culture of South America is. That it means that much to them that a defeat could bring what would be, he's obviously a top coach in world football, to tears.
Any more emotional side of things, or are you just laughing along with Dave at this one?
I haven't listened to it. I've seen bits and read snippets of what he said. I'm more in a moment of confusion with it. I understand the emotion attached to it. I get it. But your team's turned up and absolutely stunk the place out and you've lost. You probably should have lost by more than one goal. You've done well to kind of see it to the end of it. Yeah, you've done well to kind of see it to the 120th minute. You've ended up down to 10 men because of the actions of your players. Like, there's not been any robbery here, but I think it's a cultural thing. The South Americans and Argentinians, Uruguayans, Dave mentioned this, that they're very different. They're just different to the way that we see things in Europe and the way that we carry ourselves as English. Football is life or death. We think of it as life or death, but it really is life or death for them over there. I got to experience it for a few years with Marcelo, and the way that he conducted himself was very, very different as well. So I'm assuming over in Argentina, they will have heralded that performance. They will have seen them as warriors. Scaloni will be a hero for the way that he's come out and addressed this in the media, because that is the way that they relate to their team and their manager and their players. So, yeah, I'll be honest with you, I don't hold any grudge over Argentina in any sort of way because of what happened in the semi-final. England were responsible for what happened in that semi-final. They deserve to go through because of the way that the game ended up playing out. So I'm like, whatever in terms of who won the game. Yeah, I'm a bit meh about the reaction. If I'm honest,
teams you love to hate are part of the DNA of football. If we were all very samey, it'd be a bit boring.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah. That's fair.
Yeah, they're like a pantomime. I mean, obviously, we're raised on English media and English biases, but you always need a pantomime villain. In cricket, it used to be Shane Warne, for instance. Obviously, God rest his soul. He's another man that's passed. But at that time, when he was at his peak and we're going for Ashes and Australia were always a rival, he was like a pantomime villain. Whereas I'd speak to family in Australia and they'd be like, we don't get the hate for Shane Warne. Like, he's just a good player, bit cocky, whatever, but not to the level that he's vilified. And I'm like, we have to have a villain. We always have to have villains. It used to be Germany and in football. But as I said in our group chat, I think Germany consider Holland more of a footballing rival than England.
Yeah, it's interesting one. Historically, you can probably put both as underdog as far as Germany concerned. Lou, I want to bring you in, mate. Thanks for taking the time to come on. We've kind of dissected through last night's game in a fair amount of detail, but very quickly, what was your kind of take on it? We were saying that it just didn't turn out to be the final that we expected before kickoff. Put it that way. You're muted.
For me, I think it was, I said it between us, didn't we, last night. For me, I thought it was, in terms of entertainment value, it was one of the worst I've seen in my lifetime. I thought Spain did okay, but they didn't need to do anything more than okay to get over the line. I think Argentina actually have deteriorated across the tournament from beginning to end. I think they started well, and then weirdly enough, not got any better across the tournament when that was the crucial time to peak. And you know what? They just kept Messi quiet, and that's how you beat Argentina. You keep Messi quiet, you probably win the game. It's as simple as that. Argentina did some Argentina things, which is to be expected. I also, listen, I know you've been just speaking about the interview with Scaloni, and I'm kind of in both camps. I've got one foot in one and one in another, where, he's a manager, you'd love to go back-to-back to win World Cup titles. That's not been done since the 60s with Brazil. That is something that you can, really put on your CV. Winning one's great, winning two's legendary, isn't it?
Yeah.
So he's probably feeling a little bit disappointed the way that's finished. You know what? They could have given Spain an even bigger game, but even despite that, Argentina kept Spain goalless all the way through until 90 minutes, whatever that was, and the rest. So I think, listen, they'll be disappointed. I think the way they've probably handled that final, they're probably disappointed at the way that some of the players have potentially played in that final and how it's been at the end of the game. It's just one of those crescendos at the end of a tournament when emotions running high, and we've seen it with Argentina in previous years. They're very, very emotional. That's how they are. That's how they're built culturally. And I think they'll probably feel a little bit what we did in that semi-final, where they just didn't do enough to probably warrant themselves a pat on the back.
I'm gonna move it on to kind of looking back at the tournament as a whole now, chaps, as we get towards the latter stage of this. I mean, look, seems appropriate, Lou, that you kind of come on just as I was about to start the point where I was asking, what have we really enjoyed about this World Cup? What have been your favourite, exciting, funny highlights of the whole thing? Because I know that you've not necessarily been the biggest fan of this World Cup overall. I've got to be honest. I know Jay said earlier that he's really enjoyed it. I've really enjoyed it. I think it's been... look, I appreciate that maybe the quality hasn't been there and the standard probably hasn't been as high as previous World Cups. But I think the entertainment and the enjoyment has been there. I think the United States and Canada and Mexico have been excellent hosts for it. I think despite the price of everything, obviously for those that went out there, I think, you look at the stadiums and the infrastructure they've got there, they've hosted a really good tournament and they've hosted it really well for the most part. But yeah, I mean, in terms of either standout matches or favourite little moments, anyone want to throw anything in first? What they really liked about this tournament before we? I feel it might turn negative at some point, this conversation. So let's try and start with the positives, eh?
My highlight was Scotland winning their first game for 30 years at World Cup, and it took a deflection against Haiti. How Tim Pot. What a highlight! What a highlight!
I mean, that is a highlight that Lou can get on board with as well. I know full well.
Absolutely.
No, in all seriousness, it's got to be Cape Verde, hasn't it? Really. They drew with Spain, as we've touched on in the opening game. They took Argentina all the way. They scored that spectacular equaliser. Them and DR Congo deserve a lot of credit and a lot of praise. Yes, the group system was set up so that almost most third-place teams went through. But if they hadn't have done, we wouldn't have had that moment against Argentina.
Yeah, I think that's a really fair point, Lou.
I think a lot of the minnows that we thought would get thrashed have acquitted themselves fairly well. Did anyone really get hammered? I can't recall. Did somebody get a 7-0 off somebody?
Yeah, I think the only one I think that was bad was Curacao in their first game. But again, they actually went and had a go, and they got that equalising goal, to be fair, against Germany. That would have been an incredible moment for the nation of Curacao and those that support them. And I guess if you kind of don't come out and attack like that to get that equaliser, you don't get moments like that as well. And look, they learned, I think, quite well for the second two games because they were much, much harder to beat in those next two group games. So I think some of the Davidsons overall actually have really added to this competition. Look, we said as well over the course of the tournament that they've got there on merit. They're not there because the tournament was expanded. It's like Cape Verde and Uzbekistan and Curacao qualified ahead of what we would consider more normal nations to be there. The fact that we were missing some big nations like Cameroon and Nigeria from Africa, but they were made up for because Cameroon were beaten to it by the likes of Cape Verde, I think it's been really good for this tournament. Lou?
Highlights for me, I'll come to the joker one last. I think Mexico starting tournament at Azteca was amazing. I think that's been a massive highlight. I think it's a shame the final wasn't there. Selfishly, I think from England perspective, that win in Mexico was a highlight of the World Cup. That felt like it had a lot of stuff behind it. The whole emotion around the game, the atmosphere before, for those that were there saying it's the best we've ever experienced. And for us to do, what people were building up as almost like the impossible, which was just crazy. The whole altitude, like we're playing up at Everest and against Mexicans who've not lost there in about 250 years. We seem to have done the job well. I think France were a highlight in the group stages. Thought we did really well. Thought they were a joy to watch during the group stages. Obviously, touched on Cape Verde. And a highlight of also seeing Scotland miss out on third place was wonderful to see in quite an average group as well, because Brazil were not Brazil. Morocco did well, but faded towards the end. And, like I said, we got a deflected goal against Haiti. So, to see them lot go home, not even qualifying, was great to see as well. But yeah, listen, for me, it's just not been the best World Cup. I think, listen, it's going to get extended even more, which I think dilutes the quality of it more so. I think there's obviously, everything that goes around it, which is what we've seen. I think last night, again, was a show, not necessarily a final. Just, and I think that was a shame. I think Wayne Rooney echoed a lot of people's thoughts, and he was probably just saying it because that's how he is. I don't think the quality's been there. I think there's some games which have passed us by. And it's a shame, because the World Cup should be the absolute ultimate of everything in football, and I just don't think it is. I think, despite the changes, I think the Champions League probably still takes over it a little bit in terms of the quality and the intensity of some of them games, which is a shame, because I love the World Cup. Historically, it's been my absolute favourite. And listen, I've had a lot of time to watch it the World Cup recently, and I think I just sense that international teams now, and I know this might be nostalgia speaking a bit, because you do get that subconscious in your psyche a bit, but I'm thinking back to some of them teams in the 90s and the early, noughties, where I don't think some of these teams would have come close to some of those. I'm looking at the Brazils, the Italys, the France, the Netherlands, and all of them, and I just don't think we get close to the present day. And I think that's where, listen, it's an interesting debate, and it's never going to happen. But the best team probably won. Called it right from the beginning that Spain will probably win it. Maybe got slightly fortunate because France didn't really turn up too much against Spain, even though they had the job done against them. I just think there's a lot of teams have got a lot of work to do internationally. I said it in some of our first shows. There's a lot of nations that don't have a proper number 9. And I think that really hurts a lot of teams. More so now, you've got a different mould of play, like an Mbappe, and Messi, for example. Haaland is really the only proper number 9 that we've seen that would probably match a lot of them teams in the 90s and the noughties. There's a real old school number 9, a bruiser who can score goals for fun. Kane isn't really a proper number 9 from what we've seen in years gone by. It's just an evolution of it. I think there's a lot of international teams that got a lot of work to do, including ourselves at England. Listen, we've done well to get to the semi-final. But listen, at the end of the day, we've not done what we wanted to do and win it, which, we can debate till, the end of time. But I think, listen, for me, the best team have won. The best 2 teams arguably have got there. It's just a shame the final wasn't up to the same standard as what it was 4 years ago. We're probably not going to see a final like what we saw in Qatar for a long, long time. No. But we'd still like to see a better spectacle and a better game. And I thought we were slightly shortchanging that.
It's very, very interesting that you made that point about national teams and where international football is, because I know that you've been busy for the last kind of 45 minutes and that you haven't been watching the show, but not 20 minutes, half an hour ago, Jay, we had this conversation, didn't we, about the fact that nowadays in international football, you seem to have like France and Spain as the only top 2 nations, and so many nations that we remember throughout the 90s, the 2000s, even kind of the 2010s at World Cups, being those big hitters, aren't your France, your Germanys, your Netherlands, Brazil. It's really interesting, Lou, that you've come on and basically made that same point that we were making 20 minutes ago. Great minds think alike and all that.
It swings and roundabouts. It swings and roundabouts, like where I'm thinking in my head like a World Cup needs a strong Germany and a strong Brazil. But in those days where we grew up, where they were strong, Spain and Argentina weren't. And now they're like the ones that are on top, and Germany aren't. England continue to just be the same. Whereas, like Italy, how have Italy gone from World Cup winners to not being able to qualify for major tournaments? You just get this touches back to, bless his heart, Downsy. When Huddersfield didn't get up and Nottingham Forest got up, and we had all the furore with that, I said Liverpool versus Nottingham Forest is a romantic fixture because everyone gets starry-eyed about, Forest, 2 European Cups, Clough against Liverpool, Shankly and all. And you know my thoughts on all that, and they love their football up there, and Liverpool's this and that. You know what I mean? Like we're doing the same. We're on about like Brazil not being good and Germany not being good. But when they were good, Spain and Argentina were. You know, I'm thinking of the teams that had like Varane and Batistuta in it, for instance, and Crespo. They didn't really hit the heights for those names. Where we're seeing these people every week on Channel 4 on Football Italia and whatever. They didn't really hit the heights with Argentina, but when they weren't, other teams were, and it's sort of swapped around a little bit now. Like Holland, I think Holland are a bit like us, aren't they? They're sort of fits and starts. They do well, and then they have a bit of a dip, and they're sort of coming back a bit now, and then they'll probably make the European finals. You know what I mean? It comes in fits and starts. Good teams are always of a level, but they still go up and down on that scale. Like the top 10 teams in the world, within reason, will be the top 10 teams in the world forever. They'll just move up and down the top 10 scale or the top 20 if you want to expand it out. You're not going to go from being in the top 20 to falling all the way down to like 65th, where like whoever's down there, Bosnia or whoever.
I do want to come to your favourite things from the tournament, Jay, but off the back of Dave's point there, I just want to bring this one up from Charles. His positives for the competition were Cape Verde, France, the Norwegian row. The negatives were Tuchel versus Argentina, refereeing errors in the final brawl as well of Argentina. Interesting you mentioned the Africans' performance there, because obviously Morocco are one of them few sides that were nowhere 15, 20 years ago, but are now a top 10 side ranked by FIFA. How do you kind of perceive those performances of the African sides? At the start of the tournament, before the tournament started, a lot of people thought African nations will do well. They'll cope well with the heat. They'll cope well with the conditions. And in the end, they didn't have any in the beyond the quarterfinals. Actually, I think they all went out by the round of 16.
Well, I mean, Morocco came across France when France looked untouchable. I were slightly disappointed with Morocco's performance that day, to be honest, because I thought they'd be able to really compete with France, and they didn't. Senegal ended up throwing away probably the worst moment of the whole tournament. I don't know how Senegal ended up not winning that game. I can't even remember who it was against. It was Belgium.
It was 2-0 up, 2-0 up, 84th minute, 85th minute, and then Belgium scored twice to force extra time.
It was a sensational throwaway, and then
it was
a hell of a game. And then you have to mention Egypt throwing away the result against Argentina. They had them in the palms of their hands as well. So look, the African teams are always going to be just a little bit short of the top South American teams and the top European teams, I would think, just because of the infrastructures and whatnot. But it's getting closer, and they are able to then compete. You know, Morocco are a genuine threat to pretty much every team that they come up against. I wouldn't have wanted England to face Morocco in the quarters or anyway in the knockout stages, really. You know, they were really good to watch for large parts of it. So have there been a disappointment? I think you probably have to say on the face of it, yeah. But I think when you apply a little bit of context, I think it's easier to kind of then make a case for the fact that there's a little bit of nuance there to why they maybe didn't, you know, get to a semi-final or a final. As for key moments, or my kind of moments, I think some of them have been mentioned. Obviously, Cape Verde were a sensation to watch. You know, there ain't many teams outside of England that would make you want to stay up till 2 o'clock in the morning to watch them. And Cape Verde were one of them for me this tournament. As much as I tried to to watch every single game, the 2 a.m. tended to be a cut-off for me for anybody other than England.
If it was a good one, you'd stick with it. If it wasn't, you might go to bed.
Cape Verde would get me up, and that's because I've got a bit of personal connection to them. I had a first holiday there right on the back of COVID, and it was one of the most surreal and brilliant countries and people I've ever met. I loved it, and then the story has kind of gravitated into football, so they've been brilliant. I thought Norway were excellent to watch, and they were my pickers, like the dark horse beforehand. So I kind of secondhand were supporting them a little bit along the way as well, because I wanted to be proven right. And obviously everybody loves Erling Haaland, Leeds boy and all that. As a Leeds fan, you do love Erling. And I thought they were good, and I thought they were unfortunate to lose to us, if I'm honest. And I think they'd have probably made a slightly better fist of Argentina as well. I'm just throwing that out there. I think they'd have beaten Argentina. I think you'd have been seeing a Spain-Norway final if Norway had got past us, but that's just me. So they're probably my two kind of favorite moments, and I'd agree completely with Lou on, you know, I think the Mexico night, I think when you take a bit of emotion away and you just strip the two teams one versus the other, Simon Jordan said this really well. We should be beating Mexico regardless because we're a better team than them. But when you apply context of the Azteca, the altitude, the reputation going into it, the whole nation
run that they had there, yeah,
and then going down to 10 men and dealing with that adversity in the way that we did, when we won that night, it felt like a very special England moment. Unfortunately, it ended up being what we had against Argentina. I think that's kind of diluted it. But in the moment, it was up there with the very best England moments I can remember from a tournament. So, And I've loved the World Cup, personally.
Yeah, likewise. Okay, so without mentioning England, genuinely, without mentioning England, what have been for you guys, or what's irritated you about the World Cup more than you expected? But also, actually, I also want to know, what have we expected to be bad, but actually has been all right in the end? So I know water breaks and the hydration breaks were a big thing at the start of the tournament. In the end, I've kind of got used to them, I think. I don't want them in the Premier League, but I've got used to them in the end. Look, Donald Trump didn't spend any huge amount of time on the stage last night. I thought that was going to be an absolute car crash, but luckily they managed to kind of get him off the stage pretty quickly, so that was all right. What's kind of worked and not worked for you, Lou, in this tournament in America?
I think the expansion of a tournament doesn't work for me, but I'm going to have to get over it because that's going to...
I was going to mention that, sorry. I'm glad you reminded me, because I really like that extra round. However, I wasn't quite so sure about the third place teams thing. I appreciate to get that extra round, you have to have the third place teams thing. But I actually quite like the extra round. I thought the tournament was better for it. Sorry, Lou.
No, it just doesn't work for me. I just think we're diluting the quality of the teams that would be in it. I think we lose that eliteness, and I don't want to sound disrespectful to teams, but I want the best of the absolute best. And I think us having to dissect a potential third position playoff table is mental. Just don't wash with me in the World Cup. So I didn't like that. But the whole thing with Balogun just put a stain on things, because we're now in a situation where some teams were questioning whether they can appeal against the suspension because fair players got suspended. All that goes behind it. That adds another complexity to it.
When that happened, then Kwanzaa got two.
What's that?
For that to happen as well with the Balogun thing, and then for Gerald Kwanzaa's red card to then get doubled.
But we don't talk about that if that doesn't happen before with Balogun. It doesn't get spoken about. I think, and again, unfortunately, and I know I'm being a bit victim elder, but I just think some of the quality of games just didn't really grip me attention that I wanted to. For me, when I want to watch a game, I sit down and I want very little distraction, because I want to be absorbed by the quality. I want to be absorbed by the game. I want to feel like I'm immersed in it. I'd say through the majority of the games, and last night was exactly the same. Listen, culprit, bang on, hold my hands up. I'm on the phone, I'm flicking through stuff, I'm messaging in our group, I'm looking at other stuff. I didn't feel immersed in that quality, which is a shame. So, yeah, like I said, I do sound grumpy with it. I think it's one of the poorest World Cups I've seen. Just in terms of the not the stadiums and all the fans that comes with it, and all the other bits and bobs that we're probably never going to see and we're not really going to know about. But on the pitch, I thought it was lacking. And I think, and unfortunately, I think we'll see an effect on that on some of our domestic side of stuff for a few weeks. We know it's going to start when it starts, but I think the actual quality of games will pick up around September, because I think there's going to be a lag of some of those players going on, having a bit of downtime, having a bit of a break, then getting back up to pre-season a little bit, and then getting back into the swing of things. I think, as much as we're all going to look forward to domestic stuff, and listen, we all are, I think we need it back. I suspect for quality of games is going to be a little bit edgy, I think, until late August, early September.
Sorry, Jed's reply, who cares?
I think that's about who finished third, right?
Which bit? Which bit? No, listen, I get it. I get it.
It could be in reply to his own bit. I don't know. It could just be to Lou instead. I like to think it's just to Lou generally, but
maybe so. I mean, I agree on the second bit about who cares about coming third. I agree with you on that, Jed. It's a shame. Listen, it's a shame because I love it, and it is my absolute bread and butter is World Cup. I absolutely adore it. But unfortunately, not for me this year.
I definitely agree with some of what Lou says. I kind of miss saying this, but I know somebody mentioned about the refereeing being poor. I thought the refereeing was great for most of the tournament. I thought the highest standard of the bar for
that high and somehow get worse though, weirdly, which I didn't expect.
It did, Chris, but we're responsible for some of that. And when I say we, I'm talking about the magnitude of the kind of pressure that fans put on these decisions not being given, and cheating being called out. There were too much questions that then get labelled at them, and then inconsistencies start happening between the game. But I thought the overall bar of the officiating was so much higher. The way that they were up to speed with play, the calling out of the BS, the diving, so many dives would have been given in the Premier League. I watch every single Premier League game pretty much, or certainly every weekend I'm watching a Premier League game, and so many of them dives would have been given as free kicks in the Premier League, stopping starting the game, and we saw loads of, and the players are bouncing straight back up because of the rules. They're having to get on with it. But yeah, to kind of talk negatives, which just seems like a bit of a weird thing to do, really, because I'm trying to be positive. But and I'm not mentioning England, which was the biggest one.
We've already done this, Jay.
I get it.
It's so difficult not to.
It is difficult not to. Germany were a big negative. Yes, they started off with a great win against Caracas, but they were so poor and ended up going out to Paraguay. Brazil, you'd have to put in that same kettle of fish as well. Barely even laid a glove on Norway in that game. They were completely second best and deserved to go out. Trump, not that I get involved in politics, but him as a whole, the Balogun situation, and then him even being there. Yes, what's his name? The president of FIFA. Yeah, he was trying to drag him off the stage yesterday, and Trump's like looking around like an idiot, like, "Oh, where am I meant to be?"
Even the Spanish players were trying to put an arm around to like, "Will you just?"
It was embarrassing. But yeah. But that's it. I hear Lou's take, and me and Lou agree on nearly everything. But I actually really liked the entertainment of the games. The quality was definitely lower. Lou is spot on with that. The quality was definitely lower. But it did mean throughout the tournament that you saw a lot of fun games of football. We watched non-league football as opposed to watching Premier League football at times because of that difference. And not that it was quite that drastic, but it did mean that there was some entertaining football, and I really enjoyed the games. The kickoff times, I'm going to say some of them were a negative 4 a.m. I don't know what to say for that, but I get it. Like, you can't always have, the time that suits everybody in England, can you? So yeah, that's going to be it for me, mate. That's it from me.
I do feel like we have seen some really good games as well. And you like the American performance in their opening game against Paraguay stands out for me. And strangely, and this is not a game that people are going to remember for a long time, but the Bosnia performance against Qatar for them to get through on the final group stage game.
Equalising in the last minute, that were a hell of a moment. We saw loads of underdog moments, didn't we? Obviously, we've mentioned Cape Verde until we're blue in the face, but there were others as well. I know Lou loves dropping on Scotland. I've enjoyed that as well. I mean, I were Haiti all the way, and they deserved to win that game. And then just seeing what Scotland did in the rest of it. I've just seen Jed's comment there about worst team South Africa. I mean, we can't say that a team that got through to the knockouts been the worst, but they were up there. They were worse than them. Qatar, Jordan.
It was so bizarre though, like, because we were all sat after those first two games for South Africa thinking these are the most disorganized bunch of players I've ever seen in my life.
I think Tunisia and New Zealand top them lot.
Tunisia were the worst team in the whole tournament this time. They were so bad. I mean, New Zealand at least did manage to compete in some of their fixtures, but Tunisia were so bad. They were like when I can't remember which team it was, when that African team turned up and they didn't even know the rules of like taking the do you remember?
Which I think, if my geography is right in thinking, Zaire actually later became the Dominican Republic.
Yeah, they did.
The Democratic Republic of Congo, actually. Dave, very quickly, what's kind of disappointed you or annoyed you with this tournament? Very quickly before we finish off.
Well, did Mexico only have the Azteca as a host? I think they did, didn't they? There weren't any other venues in Mexico.
Every game they played was in Mexico, wasn't it?
Azteca.
I'm just thinking. I mean, it's a positive and a negative because FIFA have got this kind of thing that they want to bring football to the world, but to have such an established and passionate footballing nation to only have one venue, I think, is disappointing. I mean, obviously, America's a continent in itself, and it's gone all the way up to Canada. I mean, a positive is all three got through. I know we've talked about being diluted down. All three host nations got through, which is a nice positive. In terms of negatives, we've touched on the hydration breaks and stuff. I mean, the only caveat with that is it's either got to be introduced in all games, which they had to do, or you can't pick and choose what games you'd have it. You know, there's been some games, again, staying on Mexico, where the humidity and, you know, more of the southern of Central America, where it would have been red hot, Texas and wherever, where a hydration break probably was maybe needed. I know it's a way to show on advertising in for America.
It's that balance, isn't it? Because that's one of my annoyances for me is that because it's been that blanket when it probably didn't need to be, you've had hydration breaks in air-conditioned stadiums with closed roofs that don't need that stoppage in the game. And we've certainly seen games in those sorts of environments that have changed because of the hydration breaks. Facing for the tactics to come in. Go on, Jay.
Can I just say with this, right?
Very polite, by the way.
I felt like I needed to hold my hand up because I wanted to just make this point. We have been banging on all season about this BS keeper falling over or a player falling over and then causing these breaks and the coach being able to get into the teams, right? It really isn't that deep that we take a hydration break. Like it gets brought in for the comp. You then need it in all the games, whether it's you know necessary for hydration purposes or not. But it gives the coach a bona fide opportunity to make in-game changes in the manner in which has been happening now solid for 2 seasons. Certainly last season was really bad all over the country, but particularly in the Premier League, to allow the manager times to change the game. So at least both teams get it. At least it's a designated period of the game in which it happens rather than this BS right in the middle of concrete momentum for the opposition. Like, for me, genuinely, allocate 90 seconds for it in every single game over what we had last season. Allocate the time for a 90-second hydration break halfway through the half.
You know what? I'm not massively against that, Jay. And I also think we're very quick in this country as well. And it's hard because it's a completely different comparison, but you'll get where I'm trying to go with this. We know about some games in cup competitions going, well, they've got VAR in FA Cup and they don't have it, so that's unfair. Well, actually, they've done it out of fairness for everybody else the same.
Yeah.
So we can't have one story, one narrative, complain about it when actually they're giving the consistency across all games. Whether we like it or not, they actually have tried to do that across all the games to make it consistent. So, again, it depends what narrative we want to spin on it, and we're all very good at doing that. But actually, to the credit, they've actually tried to do it that way. And I agree, I think some of the real changes and what they've done is actually for the better.
100%.
The difference is how it's been interpreted later on in the tournament and how it'll be interpreted across domestically and how IFAB and the rest of them guys take it on board. But listen, we can't moan about inconsistency when they've actually tried to do it across the whole piece.
Yeah, here's an example. Imagine if the Argentina game wasn't like a designated hydration break game. We're completely under the cosh and we've lost. I can guarantee one of the excuses at the end would have been, well, if we'd have had a hydration break, it'd give us a timeout. Tuchel could have talked to the players and he could have decided what he was going to do. And that would have been used as an excuse, 100%. But yeah,
100%.
Yeah.
And how often have we seen the game or the games not be disrupted or be disrupted by a goalkeeper pretending to be injured?
Yeah,
it hasn't existed because the teams know that this gap is going to come soon. So they can make regulated changes to the. I appreciate football to the point where I actually think it's good that you're able to see the momentum shift because somebody's actually done something to change it. Like For me, it was a good thing. It's a good thing.
Finally, then, I just want to end on this. Off the back of this World Cup, how much are we looking forward to the next one? So the next World Cup, again, it's just slightly peculiar because it's the 100th anniversary, the centenary for the World Cup. The official hosts are Portugal, Spain, and Morocco. However, there will be centenary matches played in Argentina, Paraguay, and Uruguay. I think one game apiece in those countries, and the rest of the tournament in Portugal, Spain, and Morocco. As if we didn't think the World Cup could get any weirder than it has this time around. Are we looking forward to 2030 already? I mean,
We've
look,
got the Euros first.
It's we had but I'm talking about the World. This is the World Cup daily, Dave.
I know, but, yeah.
Stick to the script. It's not going to be as Americanized. Hydration breaks will be interesting to see if they return because it's going to be hot in Portugal, Spain, and Morocco. But yeah, I mean, Lou, I'm going to come to you first. How are you? As a man that's been pretty disappointed with 2026 World Cup, how are we feel about 2030? And look, regardless of currently where we are with teams as well, because we don't know if it will or won't be expanded by then, so we can't really factor that in at all.
Can't factor it in, but we can speculate. And if that is going to be the case, 64, it'll be, just crazy. I mean, it's 4 years away. I can't get excited. I can't get excited about anything that's 4 years away, Chris.
Like, one thing you could say for in 4 years' time is, other than Harry Kane, we can probably field the same team, like within reason. Like Bellingham will be peaking. We've got a fairly young team. Kane would be 37, 38. I think Pickford would possibly be around that age. But other than that, we could almost field the same team, and they'd have 4 more years' experience. Bellingham will have 2 or 3 Ballon d'Ors by then. He'll probably have won everything. I know.
Chris will be coming on and saying that it's a positive that we've got to quarterfinal or semi-final regardless. So you don't need to sweat about it.
I just can't get excited about anything that's 4 years away.
Yeah,
I hear you. Like, I'm looking at the squad from 2018. We've had Pickford, Stones, Henderson, Kane, Rashford.
Yeah,
that's it.
That's it.
Is that it in what? 8 years?
4 years is a long time away. I think we need to sort out all the crap that happened in the semi-final and everything that goes around at first. Try and actually win a few games. Be a bit more positive in the Nations League. We've got Euros on home soil to worry about first of all before the World Cup and 64 teams and San Marino come into play in Uruguay.
I'm a little worried about our development, but it's a conversation for another time. Like, when this team was coming through, the 21s were absolutely smashing it. It doesn't feel the same. It doesn't feel like we've got the same plan. In this country, we're buying foreign youngsters even younger. They're coming through and taking up academy spaces, and then more importantly, first team spaces. And it is leaving the development path for young English players really, really dry. I look at it from a Leeds perspective, and we're the same. The route through is blocked.
It's not.
Listen, let's be honest. I don't think many people are excited about this World Cup. Never mind 4 years away.
Yeah, I agree.
And we don't even know who the manager is going to be in 4 years' time. And we apparently got an elite manager just before this tournament to take us all the way through. So, listen, I think we've got to see what it looks like in 3.5 years' time.
It's be interesting, that is for sure. Charles put in earlier the question of how do you beat Spain? Well, we'll find out in September because that's England's next game is a Nations League game against the Spaniards. We will round it off there. We will be back with a lot more club-based content over the coming weeks. I'm away for a couple of weeks as of next weekend, but I'm sure the lads will be on, and then when I return, I think we'll be just in time to start doing things like a League One preview and focusing on the likes of Huddersfield and Bradford City there. And Dave, I'm sure we can get some FC Halifax Town content out as looking ahead to the start of the National League. This is where you're supposed
I don't think you're gonna.
Excited and enthused. Stop it.
No, genuinely, I don't think you're gonna. I've already said my piece on it. You won't get much out of me this season on that front. No point.
I mean,
There
basically,
really
this is
isn't- there
Dave
really
just
is no
resigning
point.
from the show then if he's got nothing to offer
Yeah,
going
there's
forward.
just nothing. There's nothing to add. It'll be rinse and repeat of last season and the season before. We'll be in the top 10. We'll have players that excel and they'll just fuck off at the first opportunity. And that's it.
Right,
That's where we're at.
That's where we're at. Jay, you and Brownie, I know for a fact, will be a lot more positive over the course of the season for Leeds United, come what may. I'm guessing you and Brownie will be back later this week, Friday, usual slots.
Yes, 11 o'clock. I will just say now for anybody that is interested, me and Brownie are also planning an evening show of a Tuesday evening. Probably going forward, we're going to announce that on Friday, but seems like a good segue to kind of mention it now as well. But yeah, we've had some serious, really good
You've not
support.
even told us that.
I know we haven't told you that. We've not fully decided it, but I think we're going to go ahead with it. So Friday morning has been really positive. We've had some really, really good shows. There's loads to be interested in on the Leeds United front right now. And, the second season in the Premier League with the money that's knocking around and the development that the club want to take, the stadium expansion, everything is building Leeds United back towards the top end of that Premier League, hopefully. So, yeah, it's a great time to be a Leeds fan and speak Leeds. So, yeah, we're going to do a bit more of it.
Yeah, I know that we've spoken as well, Jay, about trying to do maybe some transfer-based shows between now and the end of the window as well, because aside from Leeds United, I think this transfer window is going to be very, very interesting over the coming months. I know you do as well, Lou. I think between now and that window closing. He says as a optimistic Newcastle fan. Let's end it there then. Big thank you to Jayson Boocker, Dave Foy, and Lewis Sale for joining me on this one, the final World Cup Daily of 2026. You never know, we might come back for 2030 in 4 years' time. We'll see. From myself, though, and the lads, enjoy the rest of your Monday, whatever you get up to, and we'll see you again soon here on the West Yorkshire Football Show. Don't forget, like and subscribe on YouTube, and you'll get notified whenever we are set to go live. Take care. We'll see you soon.